What's up, YouTube? This time, this video is going to be completely off to the side in a matter of the usual content. Normally, as you know, I do shoot a lot of wildlife, birds in flight, that sort of thing, a lot of action shots, things like that, pushing the autofocus system of the K-3 Mark III. However, this time, we're going back to a different genre of photography, which I used to do, which was event photography. So my family and I went out for Canada Day celebrations, and it was late evening, turning into night. There were fireworks and all that stuff, and I pushed the K-3 Mark III to the absolute limits in that environment. So when I say I pushed it to the limits, what I mean is, varying exposures. It was mixed lighting from natural light when the sun was still slightly out, to stage lighting, deep shadows, it was various mix of lighting in regards to the spotlights that were on the stage, plus, from white lighting to purple to the natural hue from the sun. And so from there, just setting up the exposure and everything. And at the same time, I was shooting in a mix of live view and OVF, mainly in live view. I tried out pixel shift, handheld, yes, pixel shift, handheld, with motion correction on, motion correction off, versus just standard photos, just to see what the differences were. And I was actually very, very surprised. The pixel shift handheld with motion correction on did an amazing job. Amazing job. Comparing that back to back, turning motion correction off, that was a throwaway. And it finally also happened. I got the crazy purple hue tinge thing that other YouTubers had talked about and mentioned. It finally happened. Now, here's the thing, though. Don't focus on the fact that it happened. That's not important. What is important is understanding why it happened. Right? How did this actually happen? It's unfortunate that it did manifest. However, it's solely based on the fact that the exposure was off. That's it. That's it. As soon as I dialed back the exposure to compensate appropriately for the scene, as I said, it was a very difficult scene to shoot. You've got intense light, deep shadows. Yeah, it was just the exposure's all over the map. So with the incorrect exposure, yes, it threw a purple cast everywhere, on the stage. And once you dial back the exposure, it actually came out properly. It had nothing to do with the ISO that I was shooting at. It was just nailing the exposure got you good results, which is a fundamental element of photography. That is the number one thing. Make sure your exposure is correct. If it's not, it ain't going to be so good. And it's almost like the K-3 Mark III is telling you, this ain't right. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. But let's get into the images. So starting off, while the sun was still out for the most part, I was shooting in just natural light. And the combination of the K-3 Mark III and the DA-Star 1650 PLM is a remarkable combination. I especially like the transition of the out of focus areas to the in focus areas. You have very, very smooth blur transition from foreground to in focus to background. It's fantastic. I love this combination. And there were a lot of people that were at the Canada Day celebrations, as you can see. And as you can tell back here, the sun was starting to go down, starting to get those purplish hues in the sky, and it was overcast. Thankfully it didn't rain. But as you can see, there's just a ton of people back here. Just a ton. There's people everywhere. Everywhere. Anyway, so then the sun went down. And this was one of the images that I shot for the stage. And this was at ISO 6400. And it didn't help that the lighting on the stage itself was very, very purple, as you can see. Very, very purple. But the camera did render this properly. My exposure's off here. There's a massive spotlight just beaming on that one guy. So, like I was saying, it was a very, very difficult shooting situation. Now, in regards to the pixel shift, this is where things get interesting. But before I get to that, this is what I was talking about. So this is when the complete and utter takeover of purple happened. You can see it in the corner here, a little bit on the side here, and you can see the blue hue coming off this silhouette of this person here, right? Yeah, it's, and I mean, everything's just washed out, completely purpled. And it was just due to the exposure. And now I shot this on purpose because as I was shooting, once the sun had gone down, I was really trying to push the limits and see if I could actually get that purple tinge. However, I don't see it in the shadows. You really don't see it anywhere along the grass area here. Is mainly where there's illumination, right? And I have shot at 25,600, 12,800 in a well-lit scene for that ISO, and there were no issues. So once I dialed the exposure back to compensate for all this blown highlight area, it was fine. Everything was silhouetted, so it's really just about getting your exposure correct, and that's, that will prevent that whole purple cast crazy thing from happening. But anyway, let's get into the pixel shift. So this was pixel shift with motion correction on. Let's go 100% here. And I mean, look at this. I mean, these guys were moving on stage. They were moving on stage, and these people are dancing. And this is a JPEG straight out of the camera. All the images are JPEG right out of the camera. And this is with pixel shift off. So with pixel shift off, and it's not quite as sharp. The colors aren't quite as rich. It's very subtle. And I think it's pretty subtle. Let's go back to the motion correction on. But there is a bit more detail that is being thrown into the image with the pixel shift motion correction. So here's pixel shift. Is this pixel shift off? Yeah, this is another one with pixel shift off. And yeah, just a standard image. Nothing crazy. Pretty standard image. I think focus off a little bit. Yeah, focus might be slightly off, ever so slightly. It was a slower shutter speed as well, and there was a lot of movement. So yeah, I was shooting at 1/25th of a second there. And this is with pixel shift on. And as you can see, it totally failed. This is just with standard pixel shift. No motion correction whatsoever, just straight up pixel shift. And these dancers here, it's a complete and utter silhouette. And his hand is all weird, and you can see all the pixel lines. It just couldn't map it out properly. The colors are, all the pixel colors are off. So the difference between that and motion correction being on is absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. Like, you're not supposed to, quote unquote, use this handheld. It's not supposed to work, but I did, and it works brilliantly with motion correction on. And, yeah, I mean, here's another one with pixel shift. So, I mean, the difference between that and this, absolutely incredible. Absolutely amazing. And yeah, that's pretty much all I've really got to say about this element of the outing. And yeah, I mean, The combination of the K-3 Mark III and the DA-Star 1650 PLM for event photography, beautiful. Absolutely phenomenal. But with that whole color cast thing, YouTubers have said, there's this crazy color cast and everything turns purple. Well, I got to the bottom of it, and it's solely due to the improper exposure being used. The end. I've had the camera for a year, and I have never seen this happen. Now that it's happened, I dialed back the exposure, and it was fine. So that's, process of elimination, right? But yeah, so that's pretty much it for this video. If you like the video, leave a like. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. Always helps out. By the way, the video footage that you're seeing right now was shot with the K-3 Mark III handheld. Didn't do too bad. Did not do too bad. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. If you want to support the channel, I'll leave that information at the bottom of the description. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. And that's it. You'll see me on my next video. I'm out.